All right, we'll call the Clinton Utilities Board meeting to order. And our first order of business will be to extend the oath of office to our new board member, Steve Combs. Steve, if you'll come up here, I'll ask you to repeat after me, please.
Am I gonna have to read something?
No, I'll read it. All you have to do is remember it, and I will pause at an appropriate time. I, Steve Combs,
I, Steve Combs,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Director
the duties of the office of Director
of the Clinton Utilities Board
of the Clinton Utilities Board
of the City of Clinton, Tennessee,
of the City of Clinton, Tennessee,
which office I am about to assume,
which office I am about to assume,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Tennessee, so help me God.
and of the State of Tennessee, so help me God.
Thank you so much for your willingness to serve.
My pleasure.
Our next order of business is election of officers, and the floor is open for nominations for the position of chair.
I will nominate Charles Price for position of the chair.
Nominating Charles Price. I have a second. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of nominating Charles Price to the position of chair, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you don't care to change seats, we'll put you right over here. And I'll have some information for you, and you will be asked to open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I know you're gonna enjoy this seat much better than the one you're coming from.
Yeah, get away from Zach. It smells better now. Okay, the next office is vice chair. So the floor is open for nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Dr. Violet for vice chair.
Second that?
Okay. Vicky Violet has been nominated and seconded for vice chair. Excuse my mouth. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Vicky,
Thank you.
you are now the vice chairman. As I recall, the position of secretary is optional.
It is.
I don't know, I was secretary for a while and I did nothing. So,
What the history behind that, and really in the organizational bylaws, that position is an optional position. It was originally designed years ago when checks were being signed, and then the secretary didn't do that any longer, and we don't even do that because it's all electronic now. So unless the board deems that it's an appropriate position, there's no function for it.
as just a matter of discussion, does anyone have any feelings strongly one way or the other about the position of secretary?
I'm thinking if it's not needed, we wouldn't need to fill it.
Any opposing views to that? Okay, then we will not have an official secretary.
I did this, maybe will help you just to go down so you know who does what. So we're on 3, 4 now.
The next item is the public comment session. Normally, we have 3 minutes that are allocated for anyone who has a comment or an issue to bring forward. So the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Mr. Bounds, if you just state your name for the record, that would be great.
My name is George Bounds.
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Okay. This December, I had a little run-in with CUB. From the transformer to the weatherhead, they had to change them wires because they were so old that the coating has fell off. And the neutral ground was working right. And they called them, they come right out, like he said they would, and changed it. But, in the meantime, it messed up my furnace, and I had to get a bunch of work did on it. Plus, I had to buy a new refrigerator, throw about $300 worth of food out, and change a bunch of breakers on my breaker box. And the air conditioning was a big thing because it was during the first cold snap, and it was cold. I called CUB, they wouldn't pay for it. I have a letter here from the insurance company, and they researched it, and they're not gonna be held responsible. And I waited a little while to see what was gonna happen, nothing happened, so I went down and talked to the mayor. And she suggested I come down and present it to you all, see what you say.
I remember now, Greg, I spoke with you, Mr.
Yeah.
Bounds, Ernie Bowles.
Yeah,
And if I remember right, you'd been in the house since the 50s even, or early 60s.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the
I've been down
service
there
was
about 10,
original.
12 years in Tequila Hills.
The service was original.
Yeah.
And I told you that typically, if you call us and we come right out
Yeah, you
and we
did.
fix it, then there's no negligence. But I would, if you insisted, I'd turn it into the insurance, and I did.
Yep.
And I never saw the letter, but I assume
I
they
got one
denied
here.
it, and that's why you're here.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, the whole key is that we did come right out, and that's not something that any utility does a routine inspection on the service line. So the only way we know that it is bad is if something were to go wrong with it, and it unfortunately did in your
Well,
case.
all these years it didn't go bad, but this time it did. I called, you all come out, replaced the lines, replaced the negative, but still, had to eat like $1,800 worth of,
I understand.
and I just think that I need to get reimbursed because I took care of everything in the house, but from the weatherhead to the transformer, that's yours. But I just think that somebody needs to reimburse me. That's why I come down today.
Is there
There,
a
the,
formal policy?
yes, and that is, in terms of liability, who's liable, because we don't have control over what's going on the property. But we do then, especially at the request of the customer, we forward that on for investigation to our insurance folks, and then they go through whatever procedures, and I don't know if they contacted you or what they did, but eventually they would do a determination whether or not, they deemed that we were liable or should have done something other than what we did. And given the fact that they gave you a letter saying that, this is Brentwood Services who we deal with, that your reported property damage resulting from broken neutral in the service line, our investigation determined this service line failed due to normal wear. Clinton Utilities Board had no prior notice of a potential problem, but responded promptly and completely appropriate as far as repairs, and they were done, and the problem, as soon as the problem was reported. This is unfortunate incident. We are sorry you sustained property damage. We cannot accept liability for your claim, and we found that Clinton Utilities Board is not negligent in what we did. That's not a surprise to us, and I, along with everyone else, am sorry that it happened, but unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do about it. There's nothing our insurance company is willing to do about it.
We have transformers that fail more often than services, and sometimes they'll do damage to a customer's property inside or whatnot. Provided that we come right out and we correct it, it's a policy that's universal
Well,
across the valley.
If your microwave went bad on a smaller level and burnt the food that you had in there, if the microwave company, unless they had a safety issue that they neglected, they wouldn't be liable for that. It was a failure of the machine. But it's on a bigger scale for you, and I understand that. I'm sorry, though, but there is no course of action that we can take that we can pay you for the loss that you legitimately sustained.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Bounds.
Okay. And there's one more thing I'd like to ask Ernie over here.
Yes, sir.
I talked to Greg McNally about a big white oak on the end of the lot in the easement. McNally.
Yes, sir.
And I talked to the highway department, and they're willing to come out and help cut it. But unless CUB gets involved, because they've got a cherry picker and the highway department has not.
I understand.
And the last 3 or 4 years, on my side of the property, I've had all the limbs cut. Last year, if I'd have been a half hour late for work, I wouldn't have been here, because the limb fell right as I was pulling in the parking lot. And the tree ain't rotten. The limbs, they look substantial to me, but if it falls, it's gonna rip down a transformer, and it's gonna put the whole subdivision in blackout.
If you wouldn't mind to give me your phone number, I'll have Mr. McAnally call you. And if you don't want to give it to everybody that's watching on TV, you could just call me tomorrow, and then I'll get Mr. McAnally to talk to you on that. However you want to handle it, I'll be glad
Okay,
to pay.
I'll give you your phone number right now.
Okay, all right.
It's 865-363-5679. That's my cell phone.
Yes, sir.
I always got it on me.
Okay. We'll call you.
And that's it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Are there any other course of action you think I can take?
I would think that the only other course that is open to every citizen is to determine whether or not they have legal standing in that.
It's already paid.
Okay.
Did you not have homeowners insurance?
That's,
Yeah, but
They,
by the time I paid homeowners insurance,
The deductible, yeah.
that will get me. So,
but when did this occur? I'm sorry.
around December
Okay.
2nd. First cold snap. But, all right, thank you all.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Banks.
Bounds.
Okay, the next item.
Can I ask a question, just for my edification, just to understand? So what we're saying is, we're not liable for quality of service up to the weatherhead?
We are always liable for quality of service.
Not inside the home.
We don't know what failed there, I don't know. But anything even considered an act of God, what we have to be quick to respond to is when we're notified of a potential problem, and if we ignore it or fail to do it, then there's negligence in that. We should have done a better job of at least determining the safety issues. But there are neutrals that even in your panel that can cause a problem. That's wire coming into your panel, and if they're not tight, and apparently he had a problem with his neutral, and if the neutral came into the weatherhead. But when there's an issue like that, if we're out there, what we do as a matter of course, for a line that's been there for 35 or 40 years, whatever, 50 in some cases, we just replace the line. I mean but the actual cause of whatever damage he has, or he says that he has, we don't know. And for us to open, if the state opened us up for liability for that, everyone who had any issue or perceived issue of blinking there, if their TV went out, they would be looking back to say there was some kind of a power surge. Of course, we're not responsible for that either. You see, that's why you have surge protectors, you know. So, in terms of voltage, what we are responsible to do is provide safe power to the home. And that's why, and the state goes out and inspects that, and at the time that's said, if everything's good, we need to be notified. I say blinking in the lights, you know, my TV starts to go like this. We're notified of what the customer says is a problem.
Hypothetically, if there was sufficient evidence that there was a voltage drop prior to the weatherhead, not caused by the homeowner, would that be our responsibility?
Not if it's, not if we have no notification about it, you know, or didn't take any action associated with it. We, by the National Electric Code, have a window, what they considered safety standard, you know, as far as what voltage is to your house. CUB has the ability to check voltage at the house from here, because we ping the meters, and part of that information we get back. And part of what we do is make sure that we are within that window of what we call acceptable quality service.
Okay.
And as long as we're doing that, and we monitor that really hard, then we're good to go. But if a limb comes down on a line, that can disrupt service all downstream from that. And that hit or that blink or whatever it is that you see, your heat pump, when it comes on, depending on your wiring in your house, you'll see a dimming of that. Some
What it
people-
all boils down to is.
If you think I'm talking too much, Ernie, obviously I was just talking. And
I mean, we're in the
apparently doing a
neutrals of
poor
the
job
weatherhead and
of
windows and
explaining that.
everything, so.
It is the truth on a window.
It's different. But the whole deal is what caused it. If we caused it because of what we didn't do, we're liable. If God caused it or attrition caused it, we're good as long as we respond. Because we don't know when a limb might fall out of your front yard. There can be any number of things that can cause your service to be abnormal that we wouldn't know about until you called.
Okay.
Is this covered in a CUB policy? Or-
Schedule of rules and regulations, yes, that the board approves and that TVA approves for us.
Okay. And that's in the library we have here, I guess?
Yeah, oh,
somewhere?
absolutely, yes.
Okay, the minutes have been distributed. Hope everybody's had a chance to read them. Just a point, we always ask for a motion that they be approved in a second, and then we do a vote. According to the normal rules, that is not required. We'll do it this time, but in the future, all you have to do is say, are there any corrections to the minutes that have been distributed? If no one has some, then they are approved. So, but anyway, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. It's another pet peeve item of mine coming up is the approval of vouchers. I've been on the board, I guess, for, I don't know, 3 years or something like that. I'm the only person who's ever made a comment or asked a question about vouchers. But each month, we print them all out, and then we, once again, get approval, a motion to approve, a second, and we vote on it. So we will do that again. Everyone has had a chance to see the vouchers. Do we have a motion to approve the vouchers? Is there a second?
Second. Vicki and
I have a question.
Sorry,
No.
sorry.
What are
Go ahead.
you, I don't understand your pet peeve. What are you
The
saying?
fact that we produce these things and nobody looks at them, and we go through the process of doing this. What I would really like to see is, I would like to have somebody, probably from Dudley's organization, explain to us what the voucher procedure is. How approvals are met, at what point they have to be going up to someplace. And then simply a statement that all the procedures are followed, and we make sure the auditors check to see that our procedures are being followed. That would seem to be all that would be needed. All of the money associated with these are covered in the financial reports anyway. So it just seems like just a waste to me, but,
Well, I'm going to take exception with one thing you
Okay.
said, if you, with all due respect.
Sure.
I think we all look at them.
Oh, do
I
you?
don't know that we go through and question every single one, but there's a level of trust that we have in the people that are doing this.
okay, if
But
it's
we-
worthwhile to look at
Yeah.
it, but like I say,
Yeah.
I know for a fact that I'm the only one who's ever commented or questioned. Is there a motion to approve the vouchers?
I make that. I thought we just did.
Point of
We just
order,
did.
Mr. Chairman, there is a motion
Yes.
that's and a
Yeah.
second right now, so you're ready for your vote unless there are questions.
You were the second.
Right, a second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I said aye, but let's go back to the discussion on that real quick. I mean, so where this board provides oversight and accountability. But, you know, at this point, the toothpaste is out of the tube. We've paid Clinton Home Center what we've paid them. So if we didn't approve, or if we had an issue, I mean, what's the remedy? Is it just sort of slap the hand and say, hey, you know, I mean, what be
Basically, what we're doing is we're approving what's already been spent.
correct? So
You
I
can't
mean,
undo that.
you-
I see
you
what you're
can't-
saying,
You can't
though.
undo it.
I
I
mean,
mean,
what-
so what is the remedy is other than just a sort of a verbal admonishment that I'd like to not see, I don't know, whatever.
Let me just say, in all of the years, there's never been an issue on the voucher that would need an admonishment. I have authority up to 50,000, which we exercise all the time in order to do business. That's what we have to do. There are some utilities that have more than that, you know, because they're even bigger than we are. I assume Chattanooga or Memphis or whatever. But 50,000, anything above 50,000, we get board approval on. And we have a lot of things that are 49.8, you know, but this is what we do. Every cent that we spend is represented in this voucher listing. So each voucher is tied back to a check, which is tied back to, and we, at any level, if you want to see 50,000 and above on a listing, which might give you a thumbprint, if that would be a workable solution, that way you would see these higher number vouchers.
I would like to see, just background of the companies and things, like a $25 check. That would require, I would think, a very low level of approval. If something came in at, 5,000 or something like that, it would require a different level of approval. And so I think as the board, what we would want to do is to make sure that those are reasonable limits of approval that are out there, and from an auditing standpoint, that those rules are being followed.
Everything you see on this list is approved by somebody in this room. Everything. Ernie approves things that come through his department. I approve things that come through mine, and Dan approves things, and Greg hits all the big stuff.
So
So,
at what point do they go to Greg? I mean, is there a dollar amount? You're saying you can approve anything up to 50,000, but can Ernie and the
Every
rest,
work
I mean, can
order,
everybody else
everything,
approve up?
everything that's on a work order, I approve. Everything that,
Okay.
it comes across my desk and I approve. And that is after one of the directors have approved it. So what comes to me, if it's a supervisor, if it's in a department with, where accounting and that invoice is checked and approved, then it goes up to that approval, then it goes up to the director, and then it will come up to me. not the
they all-
$25.
But they all go to you like, Ernie
Any-
can approve
You have to sign off on
5,000 or
everything.
something.
On
Regardless.
everything that's on a work order or a purchase order, rather,
Right.
a purchase order. The thing that you see, Wilson wrought iron for $25, I don't see that. I don't see that. I could see it, but that'll go up with whatever department. I assume that's Dan had to get something, and I give Dan the authority to prove that low dollar amount.
But that's what I'm asking, like, at what point, at what dollar amount does it have to be approved by you? Is that in the rules and regulations anywhere?
It is, because every purchase order that's required, that's required to have a purchase order, that has to be approved through me. So, and that's in our rules and regulations for purchase, it's our purchasing policy.
I guess I'm just thinking from an education standpoint, everything I purchase has to be on a purchase order. So like, at what point does it have to go on a purchase order?
Do we have a petty cash system where Ernie can spend up to $50 out of petty cash without being a purchase order?
We have a petty
approved?
cash system, but those are for refunding deposits. We very rarely use that, because I find that is the biggest open door to a problem. So that's why we don't do credit cards. We do purchasing cards that we can get items, but we don't do lunches, and we have access to a card number if we need it, but we don't use that.
But I think that question is getting back to her question. At what level does it require a purchase order or a work order to be signed by you?
Where are we on that, Dudley? You know,
The number slips me, but I'm thinking, because I haven't reviewed the purchasing policy and Jonathan tracks that for us. I'm thinking it's 5,000.
would have been my number too. We have a purchasing agent that has the thumb on that. So for the directors, it's 5,000 and below. They've got the authority to do business within, if it's engineering operations, if it's accounting and finance, if it's water and sewer. And everything above that goes to me.
Well, to support what Vicky said, I think there's a level of trust that we have in everybody that's in this room. But from my perspective as a board member, I do like looking at this, and I do look at it every month just to see. I mean, some of the stuff I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I mean, I can look at the description and get an idea, but it's nice for me to be able to see from an accountability standpoint where the money's going, since we do vote on that budget.
Well, if it's useful.
That's my
yeah.
standpoint, but
Do we have our own internal auditing system, or do we buy that service so that periodically these purchases get audited back to a signed work order or an authorization?
Oh, yes, sir.
Auditors do that, and we have a workflow system. You know, it's all, works through the computer now, and we scan those invoices in, and those invoices get sent to each director for approval and up to approval of payment, and we can track everything, and you can see who approved it and what steps it went through. I mean, we have pretty good controls on that, and the auditors will randomly check those. Of course, they look for the bigger dollars mainly.
And then TVA, on top of our independent auditors, look at that. So we really have two sets of eyes.
Is this available
Independent.
online,
What?
the list of vouchers?
No.
I would not
It's
think
in our
so.
package.
I mean, it's
It's on your
No,
app.
what he's mean, it's in the board pack. It's not available, on the web. That's right.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean for, I
Yeah,
meant for us.
it's in your
like-
board pack.
It's in
Yes,
the
sir.
board pack.
Okay, so back to where we started from. What were you saying that you wanted or didn't want? What were you saying?
I didn't see the reason to print these out and have them in our package. They're available, we can look at them if we want to. And I didn't see the purpose in us going through, making a motion to approve them and second and voting on them, because it's just a needless formality that we just do.
I would think we'd be better served getting a chance to review the periodic audit of these things and approving that function and saying, yeah, we understand they looked at so many hundred of these over the last quarter. They pull background data on all of them and everything looked kosher, and we say good to go.
Well, that's done annually with the auditors.
I think we need to respectfully, I believe that we need to do this monthly because of the fiduciary requirements that this board has. And whether or not the board is carrying that out to the chair's satisfaction, that's another question. But if we didn't look at this monthly, I think we're inviting a certain amount of willful negligence there. You know, everybody, I think, is in agreement that there is a level of trust, but this board has to trust but verify. And this is the verification part of that. And it may have come across in the past as something that was somewhat of a rubber stamp. Well, maybe it is because, you know, there's implicit trust there and we see what it is and we don't have a lot of questions about it. However, I think for procedures and policies, I think it's a great thing that we just continue to do that and continue to look at it monthly. Just my thoughts.
I agree with Zach on that. I think that's a process that we need to continue that we've been doing, and I think probably it's written down somewhere in some auditing manual that we would do that. I would like to see us still doing that monthly.
To me, it is the most transparent. And you're not necessarily approving the payment because we have got to, we would need to meet more frequently than once a month.
Right.
You say. So what essentially we're doing is we are being transparent right down to the $19.30 that we spent. It's a transparency thing. So when you approve the vouchers, essentially we're providing you with this transparency, and you're recognizing that you have had an opportunity to see where the money went, and you're essentially approving that process, or that's the time to have a question. I mean, to me, it's a good source of information that provides you a window into the very inner workings of what we do. We would produce this irrespective of whether or not the board received a copy of it or not. So this is not excess in order for us to produce this. We produce this for our own so we can look back when we look at voucher numbers, and then we can identify and find, where we paid Wolf Tree in May. We'll go to voucher, 5138, and we keep all of these things. And in behind that voucher shows the check number that we paid them, and it shows the invoices that we paid from, and it shows the approval that received before it was paid. It's all
It's all
contained.
woven into the whole repository
Right.
system of the
And the
file.
fact that you have it and it's necessary, I agree with all of that. It's kind of like Zach's point, we're not really approving anything though, these vouchers. I guess we're just approving that we saw the list.
And there's no questions.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if there was some big red flag, we couldn't prevent it, but we could remedy going forward. We could say, hey, Ernie, I think we don't need to be paying Kennerly Montgomery
Or
$350 next week.
or why are we paying
Yeah.
Kennerly Montgomery $350?
But it doesn't, yeah, I'm satisfied with it. I appreciate, Charles, I appreciate your point of view for sure.
I appreciate that because I think your intent was to minimize the excess work
Right.
for us.
Right.
So I'm moving closer to you because
Get to the point where we don't have to do so many
I do appreciate
motions and
that,
seconds
right.
and votes.
In the spirit of full transparency, as Assistant General Manager, in Greg's absence, I approve up to the 50,000 when he's not here. Just in case anybody's got a problem with that.
Well, as board members, we do have the obligation and the right and the opportunity to question anything on here.
Anything.
So, anything. So that's kind of the checks and balances that we, in the spirit of transparency and checks and balance, if there is something on there, we do have the opportunity to question, so.
Where do we stand, Ernie? We had
Mr. Chairman, you had a motion, a second, and an approval, so you're ready to go to the monthly report.
Okay, so vouchers have been approved. Monthly reports, Dudley?
Okay, before you, you have the revenue and expense summary for the fiscal year through May 2018. For the month of May, we had a net income in the electric department of $329,000. The water department had a change in net assets of $4,320. For the year, the electric department is well ahead of the forecast by 1.5 million, and the sewer department is $961 off the forecast. I'll talk just a second about the weather. You know, we had a mild summer last year, but we had a harsh winter, which put us ahead, and now we're into cooling degree days. And for those of you that aren't familiar with this chart, the degree days are figured by that. You take the average temperature and you subtract 65 from it. So for the average, you take the high and the low, divide it by 2, and the difference is 11 from 65. So you add all those up for the year. So for the month of June, and we're really looking at May for statements, but for the month of June, that adds up to 402. That's this year. The red is last year, and the yellow is the 10-year average. So you can see for May and June this year, then it's been hot. And those of you that's been outside know that, you know. So I expect June to be a good month as well. And that drives us far ahead of the forecast. Weather plays such a big part in that.
You have a humidity index on there?
You know, if you take 11 months and divide it by 12, you get 92%. And if you look down through here, you got 92% on your sales, so that hit hitting right about where we targeted. This 90% on the power cost, that's where we really gained, because that 2% gap right there makes a big difference when you're talking about that kind of money. Mm-hmm. And we got to give Ernie's group a little bit of credit for that, a lot of credit, in his virtual power plant, which I don't know if you want to speak a minute to that, Ernie, since Mr. Combs is not familiar with our
We
virtual
wore him
power.
out pretty good the other
Did
day,
you?
but
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
But all that adds up, and when you save that much money on your margin, then that really helps. And the fact that that's 92 and 90 helps that margin right there of the 1.5 million. Now, if you look here at our operating and maintenance expense, anytime you see a positive number in this column difference, that's a good thing. So our operation and maintenance expense is also less than we anticipated. We've had some extreme weather, but we really haven't had any bad storms or ice storms or things that can just knock that down in a hurry.
I was knocking on wood the other day.
In the water department, you know, water and sewer department, we have this negative, and if you remember last summer wasn't that hot, you know, and we didn't have a lot of water sales, so we fell short on our water sales, but the sewer sales are really up, and what's driving that is the industry. The industry sewer sales are up, and one of the big ones is Carlisle. Carlisle out here in the industrial park added sewer, and they didn't have sewer before. They used to treat their own, I believe, didn't they, Dan? And they finally figured out that was costing them more than if they let us treat it. So by them doing that, that's really helped that number right there, and made up the difference there. Our operating expenses are $4,000 better than we anticipated, and we're $961 off the forecast.
Will the capital contribution come through this year? Or
What's going to happen there, Charles, is Dan's project that we were anticipating the 257 on is delayed because they're waiting on the equipment. So that's not going to come through, but we have some capital contributions from subdivisions, developers and what are they, Dan? Do you remember?
Well, you've got Patriot Place is one of the
Right.
biggest ones that we've got.
in
And then
South Clinton.
you've had a lot of lots that have been infilled. There's a lot of building in Clinton right now and lots that haven't been developed, so.
So we're feeling pretty good that we're gonna be in the black for the year, which is always our goal in the water and sewer department.
Will next year because of the grant.
And then that grant will help us next year, so.
You're required to be in the black too, aren't you?
Yeah.
Every other year.
Every other year?
So, and that's all I have unless there are any specific questions.
Is there a motion to approve the financial reports?
Move.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, go to the project status reports. Start with the electrical first. Ernie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two projects that we're tracking, we're just kicking off the fiscal year. Both of these projects, the board approved graciously for us last month. Both are in your capital outlay. The Norris job, right in the middle of Norris, that's a very interesting project with a lot of very interesting, fine folks up there in Norris. But it's going very well, I believe. We're just about 10% into it, and our last phase of our Briceville project also just getting kicked off. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, though, about these projects or anything else going on in our electric engineering operations.
If there are no questions, Dan?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These two projects, one is an upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant, and the other is an upgrade to 3 major pump stations in our wastewater collection system. Both of these projects are on schedule and on budget, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. No questions? Let's move on. We have a sale of some property, Ernie. I tried to find out on the map where this was, and I never did really get it. But
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our partnership with TDOT, if you want to call it that. Actually, we're just part of an acquisition here. They did meet with us and were kind enough to be sensitive to the fact that we have an electric substation here at the corner of 25W and Raccoon Valley Road in the Claxton area. TDOT is in the process of improving that intersection, and it seems like it has been taking forever. But they are working on that, and so now they are actively in the property acquisition process.
stop that.
There's a map also, and there's got colors, Dudley, if you can scroll. And if you see that little itsy bitsy green sliver right there, we have looked at that. That's not going to be of any consequence to us. That is something that the state needs in order to do their job out there. They get it professionally appraised. On your iPad, we included all the appraisal reports and so forth where they get comparable sales. And the bottom line is, they're asking for 4,106 square feet of this property. We believe it's fairly appraised at $1.25 per square foot, resulting in a sale of $5,200. And we would recommend that the board allow us to proceed with that transaction with the state of Tennessee.
Are there any questions or discussion on the item?
I mean, obviously, you all looked at this very closely. There's nothing at all that's gonna hinder that substation.
No, ma'am.
The entrance or, I mean,
They would condemn, if we didn't agree, they would condemn anyway. So this is, we think it's fair, and it's not going to negatively impact us. Might get these folks up on the 25W. I think they're going to take part of their parking, and that will affect their business.
Without mentioning this name right here, There's a big history there with us and that gentleman and where his family and us trying to get electricity out to 25W. If you see this cute little curve right here, you can see that the state still has work to do with that.
business?
Yes, ma'am. And I think that eventually, because what it would involve, that's the edge of a building, is they have to
Correct.
raise that building, and they're just not prepared for that fight right now. Now, when they really want it bad enough, they're gonna take it. But in the meantime, they got everything else that they needed, because you can see how they squeeze this down, and eventually it's just gonna come right through there where they gonna do one of those deals. Okay?
Do we need a motion?
Yes, sir.
We do.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Okay, sale is approved. Next item is one of our success stories. Over the years, it's really has been, it's been good for CUB and for the customers out there. And that's the write-off and the way that's been improved with the flex pay. Dudley?
Okay. I'll show you this graph a little bit, and then I'm gonna show the new members a little bit about FlexPay so they understand how that works. In 2009, our gross write-offs were 327,000, and that was right after the economy bombed out in 2008, and they got a little better as we went along, but not great. And then right here we started this FlexPay program. And
Ernie, Dud, I'm gonna do like Ernie did to me and just throw one thing out there. With a $85 million revenue stream, a $327,000 write-off is a good number. So it's not like it went from bad to something good, because it was, even at that time, we were way ahead of our sister utilities on the write-off, and, because what was that, 0.2% or
that's on these next charts
Right.
here. That's 0.328%.
0.3, yeah. So, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say,
You're
when you
fine.
said it wasn't that good, it really was.
You're fine. But it was a lot of money. So with our technology, we were able to start this this FlexPay program, we call it. And what it is a prepay program instead of a traditional customer like all of you are, where you come in, you pay a deposit, we use energy for a month, we read the meter, we process the bill, we send you the bill, we give you so many days to pay it, and by the time it's due, you're like 2 months behind. So, and then it goes on down the road. So what happened was people would get behind on their payments, and then they get so deep they couldn't pay it. And it's cheaper to move than it is to pay your bill. That's what it boiled down to with a lot of people. And the deposits weren't enough to make up for the amount of usage they had, especially if it was in a tough summer or a tough winter. So we started this prepay program, and this is the way we explain it to our customers. It's like keeping gas in your car. You prepay. You don't have to pay a deposit. You don't get a monthly bill. Because you prepay, there's no late fees. There's no trip fees because we don't go out to collect. There's no reconnect fees if it cuts off because it's all automated, and you can really monitor your usage. You pay what you want, when you want, as long as you keep gasoline in the tank, basically. So that's the premise of how it works, and it's just, I do this presentation for people, that's why I have it, but it's just like with your phone and your cable and anything else, you pay for it in advance, you don't pay for it backwards. And the utilities, always you paid for what you used last month. But what we're doing by this is you pay ahead of time. And when we did a study of our write-offs, 60% of what we were writing off were people that were there 2 years or less. Renters move in, get behind, can't pay, and then they're gone. Now, some of them plan to do that, and some of them don't. Some of them just can't get out of it. So it helps the customers help themselves, really, those that aren't trying to beat you. So, we started this program in March of 2013. Of course, we started with 0 customers, and you see how it grew, and it's grown to right at 2,400 customers. And that's 9.2% of all our residential customers. You know, when we started, we were thinking we might get to 10. You know, that would be great if we could get to 10. And that looks like where we're going to get to, because you folks in this room will never get on this program. I don't see y'all getting on that, because what you've got works just fine. But for these people, this is the way to do it. They can monitor their usage every day. They get text messages, they get emails, they get phone calls. They set up their alerts how they want it. If they want to set it up, when I get down to $10, they can set it to $10. When I get down to $10, send me a text message. It'll work that way. Emails and all that. So that's how the program works. Now, if you look at this, we got like 2,328 active prepaids. Our average payment's $37.86. That's what our average payment is. And since we've started, this debt recovered is $625,000. And the way that debt recovered works is if a customer comes in here and they owe us money, and they're wanting to set service,
From when they left the last time.
and we say, hey, you know, you still owe us $1,000, you know. In the old days, before we had this, we'd say, you gotta pay that $1,000, and then they'd go, I can't, well, and they leave, and then 3 hours later, Aunt Jemima or Aunt Jane comes in and sets service in her name, and then we don't end up collecting any of this. But with this program, for every dollar they pay, 30% of it goes towards the old debt.
Who developed this platform,
The
the computer platform that tracks all this?
There's a group called Acceleron that's been doing this for years. And because
I
we
didn't know if we did that internally or if.
because we had the technology to do it, we were the first in the area, and pretty much one of the few in the valley to start this program when we did. Since then, several have started because they've seen the success that we've had with it. It's a really good program. So they pay $1, 30% goes to their old debt. So look at this. We had a customer that started with, he owed us $2,137 in October 2014. We set the service. He started doing the prepaid, the 30%, and by May 2016, he'd paid that $2,137 off. And these, from 1,500 to 2,000 customers, we've had 4 customers get paid up. 1,000 to 1,500, 24 customers get paid up. 500 to 1,320, 200 to $500, 709 customers. So it's a very successful program. It really works for them. And we talk about the alerts that people get. These are numbers for one day right here. And if you look down here in this small print, it's over the last 7 days and the last 30 days. So in the last 30 days, there's been 12,516 text messages go out to these customers
on 2,400 customers.
to let them know they're down to this amount, or you got this much, or use this much, however they want to set their alerts. There's been 49,000 emails go out, you know, and 330 push notifications. So the program really works. It's working all the time. So
They can pay their flex pay online, right? They don't have to do it.
that's right.
here.
They've got all kinds of options to pay that. You know, they can pay online, they can pay at CVS, they can pay at Walmart through MoneyGram. They can pay at this kiosk goes all the time, all the time.
While we're open, they'll come in and use the kiosk instead of coming in to the front.
A customer the other day, we're unloading that machine, taking the money out, and she walks up behind us, and she says, oh, is it down? I said, we'll have it in about 5 minutes, you know. And she said, well, I'll just come back. I said, they're open inside. No, I'll just come back. She'd rather use that kiosk than come inside. And some of that, I think, is because they're only paying $10 or $15, and they feel a little embarrassed, you know, and it doesn't bother us to take a $15 payment, but for them, they feel a little embarrassed to do that, so they rather just use that kiosk. And that kiosk goes, I see payments, because I'll check, and they come, payments 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, that thing's going all the time. We have a kiosk in Rocky Top at a convenience store, and one in Oliver Springs at a convenience store. It's a great program. The customers are our most knowledgeable customers we have, because they know exactly what they're using every day. You know?
Dudley and I watched one guy, he came 3 times through the night, at 1 o'clock in the morning, at 3:30, and it's like 6 in the morning. So we want to see if he's trying to get money out of there. That guy's putting it in. He was putting it, I don't know why he would come 3 times in a night, through the night.
Strange thing. But
I have some speculations on that. We'll talk about it later.
I don't guess we have the technology to do the same thing with the water and sewer.
no,
System.
because I can't read the water meters every day. But what we do for those customers that we put on this program, we take last month's bill, we divide it by 30, and we do take that amount out every day. So they're still doing it the same way, and we true it up at the end of the month when we know what the real water bill is, but we don't know exactly what they use every day like we do in the electric. But in most cases, your water bill is pretty flat. You know, it's not as volatile as your electric bill. So that works out pretty good unless they have a leak.
There's a technology for that, and when we are buying meters now water meters that accept that technology, I can't make a business model that makes sense to where there is a gain for us to do that because of the cost of that technology on the meter. How am I going to get that money back? Well, electric with 30,000 meters, and you're not out there reading the meters. I mean, that's a fixed cost you can take right off. But I've got the personnel in-house to read locally within the city limits those meters without adding personnel to do that. And because of that, I've got a very difficult time trying to make a business model that makes sense for us to invest $150 in the technology for the meter that would give us that. And because you're only looking at a $14 or $15 bill, you know, it's not that you're not going to get spiked or you're not going to lose. You're not going to turn that meter off like we can with electric. There are many utilities that are using that. I can't make a business model that I can recommend where it's good for us to do.
With the flex pay type customers, are there any programs for people, especially like during this hot weather, who just can't pay their bill?
You've got some agencies that help with that.
Which
you
we
know,
direct them to.
And we direct them to them, but we are not an agency, you know, and we try to help them, but that's all we can do. We can't.
We do refer them to
Yeah.
someplace.
Yeah. Now our plan was, if you remember, I said 60% of the write-offs were people that were there 2 years or less. So our plan when we started was we should see a big reduction in a few years, and we love it when a plan comes together. So you see it's dropped down to 91,000 charged to the reserve, and that's what that detailed listing adds up to, is that 91,000 charged to reserve. Now, over the next chart shows write-off recovery, and this is the people that we have previously written off, and we set them up on this write-off recovery. So these people were all written off before in prior years, and now we've recovered this amount. That dropped quite a bit this year, and I'm not exactly sure why that dropped. I don't know if we're saturating the market on that or what, but still, here's the important number. You take your gross write-offs less your recoveries, and you have your net write-offs. That's what your net write-off is. And you can see we went from 261,000 net write-off to 20,000 last year, 34,000 this year. That is 42 1/1000% of your sales revenue. 42 1/1000%. It's pretty low, pretty low. So
Any more questions for Dudley on FlexPay?
what we have to do is approve the
Need
write-offs.
approval to write off $34,000?
Or 91, we write all this 91,000.
Motion?
Second.
And I will say that's the lowest number since I looked it up, since 1989. That's the lowest number since 1989, and a kilowatt hour then was less than 4 cents, and it's close to 10 cents now, so.
All those in favor of the write-off? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Okay, carries. Any new business, other business?
I have some other business, Mr. Chairman, that I'll be glad to share, and it won't take long. Just to inform the board, next month, we have an annual review of our self-funded health program. We do that annually, and it is scheduled for next month. Also, ACWA, and at the request of ACWA, it's been about 2.5 weeks ago now, I met with representatives from that organization to discuss an ongoing water issue in and around the I-75 Industrial Park. ACWA informed me that they were having difficulty in consistently meeting the water supply demands in the I-75 Industrial Park and Highway 61 interchange. They're requesting the CUB provide them with 200,000 to 400,000 gallons of finished water per day. And you may also remember it was about this time last year that they attempted to assess a 50% increase in our wholesale cost of water. I was successful at that time, and only after a threat of breach of contract to have that increase removed. And we are blind as to their operational efficiencies of their system and their long-term planning as it deals with supplying or distributing water up at the park and in that north part of the county. While CUB can currently provide the requested finished water to ACWA, assuming they can overcome a pressure disparity, which with the booster pump station, we're running about 130 PSI and they're running about 180. This could potentially be a short-term fix. And as you know, I am exploring grant monies to build our own water main along Highway 61 to provide water to the I-75 Industrial Park and potential future city annexation and development, which then would meet our, what I call our long-term fix. I told ACWA that I would be open to discussions on a mutually beneficial long-term plan that is cost-effective operationally and that is also workable for us. And for this to happen, it would require engineering services from a professional engineering firm to study the issues, both long and short, and to recommend a master plan. And Dan and I have been working most of our adult life trying to get a master plan on this interconnections between these two utilities. And I told ACWA, and unless we are in agreement on this, we'd not move forward unless we had a master plan, because we are blind. We're not going to move forward with trying to do a Band-Aid fix. I need to know in the long term that we're going to have reliable water and pressures to meet the needs of the park, and also potential expansion, and also address ongoing fire protection concerns up there. So they agreed, and we drafted a scope, and Dan worked really hard on this, a scope of services, and we sent it to C2RL, which is our engineers, and Cannon, which now ACWA is using. And we're requesting proposals for working through with our utilities to solve this short and long-term problem. And we've asked them to provide us with a proposal no later than July 31st. Once we get that from both Cannon and C2RL, the agreement that I made with ACWA is we'll award whoever has what we consider the best plan and the cost for that study. We'll award it to either Cannon or C2RL, and then we'll split the cost for that study. And then at the end of that, we'll have a working plan that will serve both the ratepayers of ACWA and the ratepayers of CUB, whether that be this 200,000 to 400,000 gallons with a booster pump coming off of our water plant, whether it's us putting a water main up the interstate or letting ACWA just purchase from us and then putting a booster station in. That's part of the master plan, and we're gonna have a determination of how best what we can recommend on how we move forward. So we ought to see something pretty soon on that, and I'm glad that we're working jointly together in doing that. Questions on that? That's just an update then. Yesterday at a CETA's board meeting, I was re-elected chairman of the board. As you know, some of you do, I have a passion for economic development, and I'm pleased to offer my skill set to assist in industrial development, recruitment, and retention across our service area. Both our ratepayers and taxpayers are beneficiaries of the many benefits of a healthy and growing industrial base. As many of you might recall, I also serve as chairman of the board of ETEDA, East Tennessee Economic Development, and that's representing 15 counties and also the Knoxville MSA. And in addition, I chair the Economic Council for TVPPA and TVA, and that represents the 154 power distributors across the 7 states of the valley. So we are fully invested in economic development, and locally, I agreed to continue on in my position as chair of CETA. So I wanted to let you know that, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, start down at this end this time, since
Okay.
Steve is new.
I just-
Anything else, Vicki?
I just publicly want to tell you how much we appreciate you coming on board, Mr. Coombs. It's nice to have
Appreciate
you
it.
part of the team, and to congratulate our new chairperson. You'll be a good leader.
Thank you.
Pay increase.
Same to you.
Pay increase, that's right.
Any?
Good.
Zach?
Nothing.
Steve, have anything new to add?
You'll find for me a lot of questions just for my edification for a while. Curious question. What impact does Magnet Mills have for CUB, benefits or issues?
Well, we've had ongoing issues electrically, which we, to their chagrin, have fixed by not putting any out there, you know. But other than that, other than the potential growth that it has, there is no impact on us at all.
One that we have,
Yeah.
So there's potential for.
Oh, yes.
we're mostly newish board members here, and I think good reading for everyone is the Title 18 that really describes what the board is, what the responsibilities are, how it interfaces with Clinton, City of Clinton, role of the general manager. It's a good background on exactly what our responsibilities are and what we need to be doing here. With that, I think we're through, so adjourned.